Hey guys, before we get into the video, I just wanted to remind you that I have a Twitter account over at Carthu's Dojo. Head over there, follow me, send a tweet at me, and I'll reply right away, and we can have a cool discussion about Dragon Ball. If you want to have a voice chat discussion, check out the Discord. The link's in the description. You get invited right away. As long as you behave yourself somewhat, you can stay around. Alright, now, video intro. Hello everyone, I'm Carthu and welcome back to the dojo. Today, I wanted to discuss the sort of old news by now, but still relevant I'd say, of Toppo's name being changed to Top in the Dragon Ball Super English dub. This controversy was spreading all over Twitter right after it was revealed, and people were not very happy at all, and actually very, very angry for some reason. This led to a sort of Funimation witch hunt, where people were just really, really angry at Funimation without having a real valid argument or reason for being angry. Instead, just using their raw emotions or, getting mad that something that they're used to was changed, as opposed to actually being mad about genuine things that are bad about the dub. Which leads me to my next thing, is that I do not defend the English dub of Dragon Ball Super. I think it is a downgrade from Kai, a tremendous one at that, and it really does nothing to further the series or make it just a good representation of what the series actually is in Japan. A lot of things are changed unnecessarily, and the overall tone is almost completely different in 99% of the cases, and certain line changes, as we've come to know, are just really out of place and too meta for their own good. So I think we really do have an issue with the English dub, but it's not this. So to start defending Toppo's name change to Top, we have to go over some basic concepts for you guys that may not speak Japanese like I do. Hiragana, Katakana, Romaji, and Kanji. So hiragana is the basic alphabet for the Japanese language. This is the one that most words are made out of, especially if they are native to the country of Japan. They have no origin outside of the country. Then you have katakana, which is used specifically for words that do not come from Japan. There are a few examples of this, but we'll get into those later. But basically, it's just a way for the Japanese language to incorporate words from other languages that may be new words. Then you have Romaji, which is just the romanization of these characters to appear easier to an English speaker or a Latin speaker in general. It uses basically those Roman Latin letters to get across the sounds that are made in this language. And then you have kanji, which I'm not getting into, but kanji is basically symbols that mean entire words, and these symbols were taken from the Chinese language. And that's the basic gist of that. We don't need to cover kanji in depth here. But just know there are 4 ways to write Japanese, and some of those ways can be used to write the same word. Like, you could write something in hiragana, romaji, and kanji at the same time for a lot of words, which is fine. It's an acceptable way to write it, though really the kanji would be the correct way to write it. The hiragana would be the more childish way to write it if you're not too knowledgeable in terms of kanji, because there are a lot of them, and romaji is just usually for foreigners. So let's go deeper into katakana, because that is the thing used most predominantly in Dragon Ball. So katakana basically takes words from other languages and converts them into a Japanese template that fall into the pronunciation guidelines of the Japanese language. So in Japanese, you only have so many ways to pronounce things. We as English speakers have a multitude of ways to pronounce certain sounds, and it's why our language is considered so hard. We have a lot of sounds that are weird and different, and interactions of letters that make sounds sound different, and diphthongs and things like that. You don't really have those sort of complexities in Japanese. If something sounds like po, it's always going to be po. It's never going to change to pow or po or anything like that, or poo. No, poo is its own thing, and pa is its own thing. You don't change these sounds. So 2 examples of words changed to fit within the Japanese spectrum are America to America. As you can see, there's just a K, that's the only difference, not too bad. And then you have computer, which is changed to computa. Now, you'll see there's a big variance there, and that's because America has a lot of the same letters that you find in Japanese, except for that C, because there is no C, quote-unquote, in Japanese Romaji, which would translate over to hiragana or katakana. You would use K sound because it's a harder sound, the ka line of letters. But then you have computer, which has an M in it, which is nowhere to be found on its own in Japanese. M always has letters after it. You have the ER sound at the end, which is very common in English. Those ending R's, those hard R's, computer. And then the C, again, at the beginning, which we know already from America, is changed to a K. So the transition of making a new word in Japanese by using the origin word as a basis is clear to see here. And this is really important for what Funimation did. So, Toppo is a word that is, much like all other names in Dragon Ball, a pun. And it's a pun, or a play on, the word poto. And poto is the Japanese word for pot. Just like I said before, it's with katakana, it changes over the word to be more Japanese. It changes over the word to be used in Japanese pronunciation guides, because there is no ending T. So this is why the word has extra letters, because it needs to. There are no single consonants in Japanese besides the N, the N sound that we saw in computa, which is why I used that as an example. It's the only one letter that is by itself. Other sounds are what we would call in English 2-letter sounds, like ta is 1 letter in Japanese, but 2 letters to us. To is 2 letters in English, 1 letter in Japanese. Now you might be wondering then, how is there that extra T there? Well, there's a way to extend consonants in Japanese, so that way you get a harder sound, but there's no way to just put them in individually. The extender is universal, so it's this right here. This little extender on the screen right now is a small tsu, and that small tsu is not pronounced as tsu, it's going to be pronounced as the consonant before it. I hope you're following. This is a lot to take in if you don't speak Japanese, but this is how complex it is to translate a name over one way or the other. So now we have a double T sound to get that hard T to really emphasize it's pot o, right? So the pot is the emphasized part, and the O at the end is just there because it needs to be. They need some sound. It could have been potu, but that sounds weird. Potto, patta, patte, patti, and those words are sounding more similar to other words in katakana Japanese, so you don't really want to use those. So potto is the best way to sound like pot. So again, Toppo is based off of the word pot, which is a cooking utensil, or cooking instrument, cooking tool, whatever you want to call it, cookware. That is something that is a theme throughout all the Pride Troopers, much like the Saiyans are all named after vegetables. There is a theme in the naming of the Pride Troopers, a general Toriyama trait, of course. Now, would you have caught on to this theme had I not just told you? Or had someone else who spoke Japanese not told you at some point earlier? I doubt it. I doubt that it was very obvious to you that the pun was there, without it being explicitly stated to you, or without it being, well, changed. So the clear reason for changing the name is to allude to the pun more clearly in English. This is entirely the point. We want to make the pun more clear, and thus make the name more clear, as well as give an accurate translation of katakana and how it's used. We do not call the series Dragon Ball. We call it Dragon Ball in English because that's how you translate that katakana. So we take out the extra letters present in Toppo, as they are present in Poto. So to get from Poto to Pot, you have to get rid of the last two letters. And so we do the same for Toppo, which is get rid of those last two letters, which of course leaves us with Top, the name that everybody is going crazy about. We then have the other lesser reason, I'd say, for changing the name, which is pronunciation in English. You see, in Japanese, Toppo is pronounced, well, just like that, with a hard O sound, to, po, but not pot. The pronunciation of pot is pot, pot, pot. It's almost like a hushed huh sound. So while in Japanese, the Toppo works because of toto, in English we have pot, which if we change Toppo over to top, ta, pa, the sound is the same, thus retaining, again, the sound of the pun and now the look of the pun. So we have both of those. Some people thought they would just name him Toppo to allude to the pun more clearly, but really the best way to allude to said pun is to change the lettering as well as the pronunciation. Again, it's the move that makes it clearer for the English audience to understand the origin pun. The name is, in fact, a perfect translation. And it's actually just the reverse process of turning a word into katakana in the first place, which is what poto is. It's one of our words that were turned into Japanese. Funimation is 100% right here, guys. The changing of this name, as it is, not only preserves, but makes more clear the original intent for that name. Another example of this is present in the English dub. The change from Vegeta to Vegeta. Vegeta has a V in it, which is not present in Japanese. G's are present, but not with that same G sound. J-I is how you get that G sound. So to get a perfect translation to the pun, which is vegetable in Japanese, vegetabaru, you have this change to the source word, which is changing back to its original state, vegetable, from vegetabaru, and then you change the pun name in the same way that you changed it initially. It's the exact same process. And we're not mad that he's called Vegeta, because that's right, that's what he's supposed to be called. So we shouldn't be mad that he's called Top, because that is the best way to portray his pun, his name, and its origin. This is simply the best translation in both cases, and I don't see anything wrong with it. But let me give you my overall opinion as I close this video out. I think it's fine. I probably won't call him Top, but that's just because I'm so used to calling him Toppo. Now, that doesn't mean it's wrong, and that doesn't mean I'm being a hypocrite here. What I'm trying to do is allude to the fact that this naming convention is 100% right, and it should be how they go about certain names like this. Now, the only issue I really have with the name is actually that it conflicts with the name of the arc, which is the Tournament of Power, which can be abbreviated as, well, TOP, T-O-P. That's the only issue I really have. Other than that, the name is fine, and it has no other issues. People say it's an issue that it's a real word already, and thus it makes it confusing. Sure, you could say that, but I don't think that's really an issue, especially once you have the full spectrum of the Pride Troopers, and if they translate all the names well, then the English audience will have a pretty easy time distinguishing, oh, the pun is on the word pot, because these guys are also puns after cooking appliances, or cooking utensils, or cooking tools. But anyway, guys, that's just my opinion. Thank you so very much for watching. Leave your opinions, counterpoints in the comments down below. Subscribe if you want more anime videos, But for now, guys, video outro.